my breath hitched. A silent, almost imperceptible gasp caught in the elegant ballroom's frigid, overconditioned air. It wasn't the ambient temperature that bit at my skin, however, but a deeper, more profound cold, a spectral chill born from the very fabric of memory. My hand instinctively flew to my cheek, where the phantom sensation of a stinging slap still lingered. A searing imprint of a humiliation that, in this resurrected timeline, hadn't yet occurred, but was undeniably destined to. They speak of second chances, of a rare, almost divine grace granted to mend a fractured past, to alter a predetermined trajectory. For me, that extraordinary gift had materialized as a terrifying, yet simultaneously exhilarating rebirth, a jarring thrust back into the precise moment I was meant to walk towards a future I had once desperately craved, only to find myself reborn before the fateful engagement that would have sealed my misery. In a life I had already lived, a past now mercifully erased from this present timeline, I, Emilia, had clung with a fervent, almost desperate conviction to the naive belief that love possessed a transformative, alchemical power. I had utterly convinced myself that endless endurance, boundless sacrifice, and an unwavering, almost pathological affection for Adrian would, in the fullness of time, inevitably cultivate respect, a genuine, unforced acceptance. My belief, I now realized with a chilling clarity, was a cruel, self-inflicted delusion. Back forgotten past, now a relentless, agonizing reel of silent suffering and escalating shame, revolved entirely around Adrian, my erstwhile fiancé, and his formidable, unyielding mother, Lady Celestia. He had watched, a passive, beautiful, yet utterly complicit bystander, as his own flesh and blood systematically, relentlessly dismantled my spirit, piece by agonizing piece. Adrian, in that lost timeline, was a man of striking, almost sculpted features, a sharp, discerning intellect, and a chilling emotional detachment that proved to be my ultimate undoing. His lineage was ancient, deeply steeped in the dusty annals of history, tracing back to the very architects of the nation's most powerful, entrenched conglomerates. Lady Celestia, the indomitable matriarch of this venerable family, was a woman whose formidable presence and razor-sharp wit were clubbed in an almost deceptive, disarming elegance. From the precise moment our engagement was announced in that phantom past, Lady Celestia's profound disdain for me was chillingly, unequivocally clear. My family, while undeniably prosperous, was of more recent wealth. Our name, though respectable and well-regarded, wasn't etched into the same historical tapestry as Adrian's revered aristocratic ancestors. Lady Celestia viewed me as nothing more than an opportunistic interloper, a common wildflower presuming to take root and flourish in their meticulously manicured, exclusive ancestral garden. Her initial insults were subtle, veiled barbs whispered with a sweet smile about my lack of proper breeding, my unsophisticated tastes, my excessive, almost vulgar enthusiasm. They were always delivered with a deceptively saccharine smile, a gentle, seemingly innocent pat on my arm, rendering them almost impossible to confront directly without appearing overly sensitive or irrationally defensive, thereby reinforcing her narrative of my inadequacy. Adrian, whenever he was conveniently present, would merely offer a weak, almost imperceptible, non-committal shrug, or subtly, almost imperceptibly, redirect the conversation to a safer, more agreeable, and end quote. Topic. His pervasive inaction, I would later understand with a searing clarity, was a quiet, insidious form of complicity, an unspoken, yet potent, endorsement of his mother's subtle, yet persistent, cruelty. As the wedding day in that past life inexorably approached, Lady Celestia's veiled criticisms escalated with alarming speed into blatant, open verbal assaults. She would openly disparage my choices for the wedding decor, meticulously dissecting and ridiculing my gown designs with cruel precision, belittling my desperate, often clumsy, attempts to assimilate into their family's Byzantine social protocols and antiquated customs. She performed these verbal dissections with a chilling theatricality, in front of Adrian, in front of his extended family, and even in front of our unsuspecting shared friends, basking in their discomfort. My cheeks would burn with a fiery shame so profound it felt physical, a scorching flush of humiliation. My hands would tremble uncontrollably, yet I would force a polite, serene smile, desperately attempting to project an image of calm acceptance, of unshakable grace, hoping to somehow appease her. Adrian, in the private sanctity of our moments alone, would offer a fleeting, almost rote apology, murmuring vaguely about his mother's eccentricities, her exacting standards, her stress from planning. He would offer the same hollow, ultimately meaningless promise. It would all improve, he insisted with a practiced sincerity. Once we were married, once I was officially consecrated into the family, her attitude would inevitably soften, mellowed by my new status. I clung to those fragile promises like a shipwreck survivor to a splintered piece of driftwood, utterly convinced that my unwavering love would eventually earn their elusive respect and my rightful place. The physical abuse began insidiously, so subtly that I initially convinced myself it was entirely accidental, mere clumsy mishaps. A misplaced elbow to my ribs during a crowded family reception, delivered with a seemingly innocent, "Oh, pardon me, dear," a forceful shove when she was supposedly guiding me through a lengthy receiving line, her hand pressing painfully into my lower back. Each incident delivered a sharp, unexpected sting of pain, invariably followed by her saccharine, almost cloying, apologetic smile, a fleeting look of concern that never quite reached her cold eyes. And each time, Adrian's gaze would conveniently be fixed elsewhere. Or he would offer a quick, almost imperceptible glance in my direction, then swiftly turn away, his silence a deafening endorsement of her growing, escalating cruelty. My spirit, slowly, agonizingly, withered under this relentless, insidious assault, like a delicate flower deprived of light and water. The apex of my past humiliation, the excruciating moment that finally shattered my spirit beyond repair, occurred at a lavish pre-wedding reception, held just days before the ceremony that would have bound me to Adrian forever. With trembling, hesitant hands, I presented Lady Celestia with a meticulously chosen gift, a vintage porcelain tea set that I had personally restored with painstaking care, knowing her profound, almost obsessive, passion for rare antiques. It was a desperate gesture of peace, a final, fervent plea for her elusive approval, a last-ditch effort to bridge the chasm between us. She scrutinized it with an air of theatrical disdain, her lips curled in a subtle, almost imperceptible sneer. Then, with a sharp, dismissive gesture, she deliberately, calculatedly, dropped one of the delicate teacups onto the gleaming marble floor. It shattered with a piercing, crystalline crack, the sound echoing unnervingly through the suddenly hushed, expectant room, drawing every single eye to our tableau, to my public humiliation. "This," she announced, her voice ringing with feigned sorrow, yet imbued with a chilling, triumphant venom, "is a common, cheap imitation. A tasteless piece of junk. You clearly possess no understanding of true quality, Emilia. You are simply not, and never will be, fit for this family, for our heritage, standards." My cheeks burned with a fiery shame that felt like an open wound. Tears welled uncontrollably in my eyes, blurring the faces of the stunned, embarrassed guests into indistinct blurs. I looked desperately at Adrian, who stood rigidly beside his mother, his face utterly impassive, a blank canvas devoid of emotion, his gaze fixed on the shattered porcelain at his feet, as if mesmerized by its brokenness. He did not move. He did not speak. He did not offer a comforting hand, a single word of solace, or any gesture, however small, of defiance against his mother's chilling public cruelty. He simply stood there, a silent, beautiful statue of passive complicity, utterly abandoning me to my agonizing humiliation. That's when the slap came. Not a gentle, corrective tap, not a reprimand, but a sharp, brutal blow across my face, delivered with a chilling force that violently snapped my head backward, my hair whipping around my face. My cheek instantly flared with a searing, blossoming pain, a fiery brand of humiliation. The sound of the impact echoed loudly in the stunned, suffocating silence of the room, a report heard by all. The metallic, acrid taste of blood filled my mouth, raw and bitter. Lady Celestia's eyes, usually cold and calculating, blazed with a raw, triumphant fury, a primal satisfaction. "This," she hissed, her voice low, venomous, "is for your insolence. For daring to believe you could ever truly belong here, among us, a mere commoner." I crumpled, my knees buckling beneath the dual, crushing weight of the physical pain and the overwhelming, profound humiliation. Tears streamed down my face, hot and stinging, mingling with the blood that now trickled from the corner of my mouth, a cruel, visual testament to her violence. I sobbed, uncontrollably, publicly, my entire world shattering into a million irreparable pieces around me, the shards of my hopes scattered on the marble floor. Adrian still did not move. He did not step in. He did not, for a single, defining moment, defend me. He simply watched, his beautiful, unblemished face utterly devoid of emotion, a blank canvas of chilling indifference, a silent testament to his profound betrayal. In that agonizing, defining moment, as the world blurred through my tears and the metallic taste of blood coated my tongue, something profound, something irreversible, snapped within me. The fragile, desperate love I had clung to, the fervent hope for acceptance, withered and died, reduced to dust. My spirit, which had endured so much, so stubbornly, so resiliently for so long, finally, completely broke. I remember the dizzying rush of blackness, the roaring crescendo of blood in my ears, and then, mercifully, nothingness. And then, I woke up. The intricate patterns of my bedroom's ornate ceiling spun wildly for a moment, a disorienting kaleidoscope of gilt and plaster, then slowly, reassuringly, coalesced into familiar, comforting forms. The comforting scent of lavender and polished antique wood, the soft, diffused light filtering through the silk curtains, all were achingly familiar, profoundly real, grounding me in the present. My own room. My own bed. I bolted upright, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, gasping for air, my hand flying instinctively to my cheek. No pain, no searing sting. My cheek was smooth, cool, utterly unblemished. The metallic tang of blood was gone, a bitter memory, not a present reality. Disorientation, thick and disorienting, clouded my mind for a fleeting second, a momentary fog, quickly receding before a terrifying, yet simultaneously exhilarating clarity. I scrambled out of bed, rushing to the full-length mirror, my reflection staring back at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. My face, still flushed with the lingering aftershocks of a nightmare, was remarkably young, unmarred by the years of suppressed pain and humiliation I had endured in that other, erased life. My dark hair, usually meticulously styled, was a glorious, untamed mess around my shoulders, framing the face suddenly alight with a new kind of awareness. This was undeniably me, but younger, and, miraculously, utterly intact. I rushed to my personal calendar, my fingers trembling uncontrollably as I frantically flipped through the pages, my breath catching in my throat. The precise date, the current year. It was 2 months before the formal engagement announcement. 2 months before the ritualistic introduction to Adrian's formidable family, the beginning of the end. 2 months before the calculated commencement of my systematic degradation. It was undeniably real. I had been reborn. A wave of profound, bone-deep shock washed over me, so potent it stole my breath and made my knees buckle. I sank to the polished wooden floor, my mind reeling, struggling to reconcile the impossible, the fantastical. My past life, the excruciating years of humiliation, the public slap, Adrian's chilling, unwavering indifference, it wasn't a nightmare. It was a memory. A vivid, agonizing, utterly real memory of a future that I had somehow, miraculously, been granted the chance to change, to rewrite. The realization settled over me, cold and precise, cutting through the lingering haze of confusion with surgical accuracy. Adrian. Lady Celestia. Their inherent undeniable cruelty. His unwavering passive complicity. It was never a misunderstanding, never a misinterpretation of their complex personalities. It was their true, ugly nature, revealed with brutal, undeniable clarity in a life I had already lived, a painful lesson learned. The fragile, desperate love I had so desperately clung to was nothing but a cruel mirage, built on a shaky foundation of self-deception and insidious psychological abuse. He had permitted his mother to slat me. Not just once, but repeatedly, systematically, relentlessly. And he had watched, silently, indifferently, his inaction a louder statement than any words. A new, unfamiliar emotion, sharp and purifying like a cauterizing flame, began to stir within the deepest depths of my being. Absolute, unyielding resolve. This was not merely a second chance at fleeting happiness, it was a profound opportunity for justice, for restitution. A chance to reclaim my battered dignity, to rebuild my shattered spirit. I would not, under any circumstances, be the same Emilia, the naive, trembling girl begging for acceptance and validation, clinging to scraps of affection. I would be reborn, not merely in time, but in the fiery crucible of my spirit, forged anew. I spent the next few days in a daze of intense, meticulous introspection, meticulously replaying every humiliating moment of my past life, dissecting every casual conversation, every subtle interaction, searching for clues, for patterns. I remembered the insidious, veiled taunts, the thinly disguised insults, the calculated, deliberate pushes, Adrian's empty, hollow promises that had once sounded so sweet. Each memory, painful as it was, sharpened my focus, fueled my unyielding determination. I would not, under any circumstances, walk that agonizing path again. My very first subtle change was in my outward demeanor. The desperate eagerness to please, the subtle, deferential bowing to Adrian's family's unspoken expectations, simply vanished, evaporated like mist in the sun. I became quieter, more observant, my gaze more discerning, less clouded by wishful thinking. My smile, once a reflexive attempt to placate or soothe, became genuine only when I truly felt it, or, more often, a carefully crafted mask of polite, impenetrable detachment. My conversations with Adrian became more direct, less emotionally invested, less dependent on his fleeting approval. He, utterly oblivious to the profound internal revolution raging within me, seemed to interpret my newfound composure as a sign of my growing maturity, my increasing readiness for the burdensome responsibilities of his esteemed family, a sign that I was finally conforming. "You seem different, Emilia," Adrian remarked one evening during one of our prearranged formal dinners, a flicker of genuine curiosity in his eyes. His brow was slightly furrowed, a faint hint of mild confusion clouding his usually placid, unreadable eyes. "More confident. It truly suits you." I offered him a small, polite, unreadable smile. "Perhaps I'm simply growing into myself, Adrian," I replied, my voice calm, betraying absolutely nothing of the churning determination beneath my serene exterior. I watched him, a detached curiosity replacing my former, blind adoration. He was still undeniably handsome, still charming in his aloof, distant way. But now, I clearly saw the hollow space behind his eyes, the passive indifference that had cost me so much in that other life. A void where true empathy should have resided. My parents, however, being far more perceptive and attuned to my subtle shifts, noticed the change more acutely. My mother, who had harbored a quiet worry about my tendency to be overly accommodating, sensed a newfound, unyielding strength within me, a resilience she hadn't seen before. "You seem stronger, dear," she observed, her gaze piercingly perceptive, seeing beyond the surface. "More grounded." I simply offered a vague smile, providing a non-committal explanation about focusing on my studies and my personal growth, a plausible, unalarming reason. I couldn't, of course, tell them the fantastical truth of my rebirth that remained my most guarded, intimate secret, too unbelievable to articulate. My immediate, urgent goal was to navigate the treacherous, predetermined path to the engagement ceremony. The very event that would formally, irrevocably, bind me to Adrian and his abusive mother. I remembered every agonizing, minute detail of that past engagement, every insidious, cutting remark Lady Celestia had uttered, every public slight designed to diminish me, to make me feel small. I began to mentally prepare, not for a battle of wills, but for a meticulously orchestrated escape, a perfectly timed departure. I desperately needed an ally. Someone outside their suffocating gilded circle. Someone who possessed the keen vision to see beyond the glittering facade of wealth and power. My memories also offered a faint, almost imperceptible flicker of hope. A man I had met only fleetingly in my past life. A distant acquaintance of Adrian's, a rival CEO at a lesser-known, yet innovative, tech firm. He carried a quiet, unassuming reputation for impeccable integrity, possessed a remarkably sharp mind, and his eyes held a surprising, almost comforting depth of understanding. His name was Julian. In my past, he had merely been a polite stranger at a few obligatory social gatherings, someone with whom I exchanged a few pleasantries, a fleeting acquaintance. Now, he represented a potential path to an entirely different future, a connection based on genuine, mutual respect, rather than inherited status or superficial charm, a true alternative. I knew Adrian's precise schedule, his exact social circle, the predictable patterns of his life. I subtly began to engineer chance encounters, meticulously placing myself in specific environments where Julian might naturally be present, making my presence seem serendipitous. I cultivated a deliberate reputation for being intellectually curious, engaging actively in conversations about topics that genuinely interested me, not merely those calculated to please Lady Celestia or to conform to societal expectations. I still attended the required social functions with Adrian, diligently playing the role of his agreeable fiancé, but with a newfound unwavering detachment, observing, planning, waiting. I was an actress on a meticulously planned stage, performing my carefully scripted part until the precise moment for my grand, definitive exit arrived. The day of the formal engagement announcement approached with an almost inexorable dread, a chilling sense of destiny, like a pendulum swinging towards its inevitable arc. It was to be a grand, ostentatious affair, a lavish party held at Adrian's sprawling family mansion, attended by the city's most influential elite, a veritable who's who of power. I remembered every agonizing, minute detail of the past event, the forced smiles, the condescending remarks, the omnipresent chill of Lady Celestia's palpable disdain. And then, the climactic, brutal, public slap, Adrian's horrifying, unforgivable passivity. This time, however, I would be ready. I knew precisely where Lady Celestia would position herself on the staircase. The exact moment her hand would begin its ascent, the subtle, almost imperceptible shift in Adrian's stance as he prepared, subconsciously, to avert his gaze, to withdraw into himself. This time, I would not be the victim. I would be the meticulously crafted architect of my own profound liberation. The past had unknowingly provided me with a precise script, and this time I would definitively, irrevocably, rewrite the ending. The air in the grand, opulent hall of Adrian's family mansion, on the very eve of our engagement announcement, hung heavy with the cloying scent of lilies and the undeniable, palpable aroma of inherited wealth, a scent that now seemed to choke me. Chandeliers, dripping with countless crystal facets, cast a dazzling, almost blinding light upon the meticulously polished marble floors, reflecting the glittering superficiality of the assembled guests, each a participant in this hollow ritual. The cavernous room buzzed with the hushed murmur of society's elite, their laughter tinkling like expensive crystal, each sound a carefully calibrated performance, a veneer of normalcy over simmering tensions. Every face was a perfectly constructed mask of polite smiles and veiled judgments, a silent assessment of status and power, all focused on the spectacle. This was the very stage where my past humiliation had vividly unfolded, and where my future, this time, would be irrevocably, definitively altered by my own hand. I moved through the throng with a newfound, serene composure, Adrian's hand resting with almost possessive lightness on the small of my back, guiding me through the endless receiving line, a parade of false smiles and empty pleasantries. My smile was polite, almost remote, my eyes clear, betraying absolutely nothing of the precise, calculated anticipation that churned beneath my calm exterior. I was the very embodiment of a poised, elegant fiancé, a stark, almost startling contrast to the trembling, desperate girl I had been in my forgotten past, a ghost I had left behind. Adrian, utterly oblivious to the profound seismic shift occurring beneath his very nose, beamed beside me, basking in the warm, approving glow of his family's unwavering favor, blind to the impending storm. He interpreted my newfound composure as an undeniable testament to his subtle influence, a clear sign of my successful integration into his privileged, insular world, a sign of his triumph. Lady Celestia, draped dramatically in shimmering emerald silk, stood at the very head of the receiving line, her smile a thin, chilling, almost predatory line across her lips, a viper's smile. Her eyes, cold and assessing, swept over my figure, relentlessly searching for any minute flaw, any telltale sign of imperfection or weakness, a hungry gaze. Her distinct scent, usually a sharp, metallic tang of unwavering judgment, was now subtly laced with a faint, almost imperceptible undertone of apprehension. A subconscious awareness of a quiet defiance emanating from me that unsettled her carefully constructed sense of control. She could sense the shift, even if she couldn't name it. "Emilia, my dear," she purred, her voice dripping with an almost saccharine artificial sweetness, a poison disguised as honey. "You look adequate, though a brighter, more vibrant color would certainly have better suited the joyous occasion. Such a pallid, almost mournful shade for a celebration. Wouldn't you agree, Adrian?" She glanced pointedly at her son, seeking his affirmation, her gaze sharp, challenging, daring him to disagree. Adrian merely offered a weak, non-committal smile, his gaze flitting nervously, almost frantically, between his formidable mother and my impassive face, trapped between two immovable forces. "Mother, Emilia looks lovely," he mumbled, his voice utterly devoid of any genuine conviction, a familiar, well-worn pattern of passive avoidance, a testament to his ingrained weakness. I offered Lady Celestia a polite, unruffled smile, deliberately ignoring her thinly veiled barb, refusing to take the bait. "I chose it for its timeless elegance, Lady Celestia. A classic, after all, never truly goes out of style, unlike fleeting, ephemeral trends." My voice was calm, measured, my words a subtle, almost imperceptible deflection that left her with no overt, direct ground for a frontal attack, leaving her frustrated. She narrowed her eyes, a flicker of raw annoyance momentarily crossing her impeccably composed face, a crack in her perfect facade. Throughout the seemingly endless evening, Lady Celestia launched several such veiled, insidious assaults, each one meticulously designed to undermine my burgeoning confidence, to expose my perceived lack of proper breeding or social graces, to chip away at my composure. She meticulously critiqued my choice of wine, disparaged my carefully chosen small talk as lacking depth, and made condescending remarks about my family's recent, rather surprising success, implying it was undeserved. Each time, I met her barbs with a polite, almost imperceptible counter, a subtle, practiced shift in conversation, or a serene, unreadable smile that offered no purchase for her venom, turning her attacks back on Bonnie themselves. Adrian, bless his entirely oblivious heart, remained largely unaware of the silent, intricate war being waged directly beside him, content to allow his mother to manage the complex social intricacies. Subtle power plays, his privilege blinding him. My focus, however, was not solely on artfully deflecting Lady Celestia's relentless barbs. I was also meticulously observing Julian. He was indeed there, precisely as I had anticipated, an elegantly understated figure amidst the glittering, ostentatious crowd, his presence radiating a quiet confidence and an approachable warmth that stood in stark contrast to Adrian's somewhat stiff, formal demeanor. He was an incredibly charming conversationalist, his eyes remarkably observant, his smile genuinely warm and engaging, his presence a calm in the storm. Our paths crossed briefly, almost serendipitously, during the reception's subtle ebb and flow, a moment orchestrated by fate, or perhaps by me. "Ms. Emilia," Julian greeted me, his voice warm, surprisingly resonant, his intelligent eyes the color of warm honey, crinkling at the corners in a truly genuine smile. "You carry yourself with quite remarkable grace tonight, a true star, if I may say so, in a room filled predominantly with mere satellites." His compliment was utterly unexpected, beautifully sincere, a breath of fresh air in the suffocating atmosphere. A faint, unbidden blush rose to my cheeks, a genuine reaction I hadn't felt in a long time. "Mr. Julian?" I replied, a genuine, unburdened smile finally touching my lips, one that reached my eyes. "You are too kind. I am merely trying my best." He chuckled softly, a rich, warm sound that resonated with quiet amusement. "And your best is truly exceptional, Ms. Emilia. I've heard whispers, intriguing whispers, of your keen intellect, your profound passion for ancient texts and forgotten lore. Perhaps we could discuss them further, sometime outside of this rather sparkling, yet somewhat stifling, gathering." His gaze was direct, inviting, completely devoid of the usual transactional, calculating air that permeated most society conversations. It was an invitation to true connection. My heart gave a delicate, hopeful flutter, a tiny, hopeful beat that echoed in my chest. This was it. This was my tea. Chance. My meticulously planned opening. "I would like that very much indeed, Mr. Julian," I replied. A spark of genuine, unbridled hope igniting within me, a flame of possibility. Perhaps a quiet, unassuming cafe? Somewhere far, far away from all the satellites? I allowed a hint of playful, almost conspiratorial sarcasm to color my voice. A subtle invitation to shared understanding. He laughed, a rich, warm sound that filled the small space between us, creating an intimate bubble. "It would be my absolute pleasure. I'll ask Adrian for your contact details." He gave me a brief, respectful nod, his intelligent eyes holding a silent, helpful promise, then gracefully drifted away, melting back into the glittering, murmuring crowd. I watched him go. A profound sense of lightness settling in my step, a feeling of liberation already taking root. My future, for the very first time, felt truly open, truly my own to shape. As the evening wore on, stretching into Paris, what felt like an eternity The designated time for the formal engagement announcement drew inexorably closer, the air crackling with anticipation. Lady Celestia, having been subtly, meticulously frustrated by my unflappable serene demeanor, grew increasingly agitated, her composure fraying at the edges. Her distinct scent turned sharp, metallic with mounting fury, a clear sign of her barely contained rage, a scent of impending storm. I knew, with chilling certainty, that she was rapidly reaching her breaking point, that the climax of her past cruelty, the moment of ultimate degradation, was imminent. The entire family gathered on the Graham's sweeping staircase, Adrian and I positioned precisely at its gilded center, Lady Celestia Rao standing just below us, perfectly positioned for her customary public address, her stage. I remembered this scene with an almost visceral, chilling clarity. This was the exact spot where she had deliberately shattered the antique teacup. This was where she had launched her final, devastating verbal assault, designed to utterly crush my spirit. And this was the precise location where the brutal slap had landed, searing my cheek, shattering my world. I subtly adjusted my stance, my senses heightened to an almost unbearable degree, every muscle in my body tensed, coiled for precise action, for the critical moment. My eyes flickered to Adrian, standing rigidly beside me, his gaze fixed blankly on the expectant crowd, his face already preparing, subconsciously, to avert his eyes, to withdraw into his familiar, passive complicity, his silent betrayal. Lady Celestia began her speech, her voice booming with feigned enthusiasm, but her eyes fixed on me, narrowed with an almost predatory, cold glint, like a predator eyeing its prey. She spoke at length of the family's venerable legacy, of Adrian's numerous, meticulously curated accomplishments, listing them with pomp and circumstance. Then, with a dramatic flourish, she turned her full, withering attention to me, her voice dripping with artificial, cloying sweetness, laced with poison. "And now, to our dear Emilia," she began, her smile widening into a grotesque, almost monstrous caricature of benevolence, a mask of false kindness. While she may not, regrettably, possess the lineage or the finesse one might traditionally expect from a bride joining our esteemed ancient family, we are, nonetheless, confident that with Adrian's unwavering guidance and our firm, meticulous tutelage, she will one day learn to adequately fulfill her rather challenging role. Her words were a devastating public condemnation, a humiliating, unambiguous assertion of my inherent inferiority, delivered with a smile calculated to appear magnanimous, benevolent even, in its cruelty. A collective gasp, soft and shocked, rippled audibly through the assembled guests, a wave of discomfort. My cheeks burned with a fiery shame that felt like an open wound, a searing brand. I felt the palpable heat of their pitying, scrutinizing glances, the collective intake of breath that echoed the shock of her words, a silent witness to my humiliation. Adrian, standing rigidly beside me, offered a faint, almost imperceptible twitch of discomfort, a fleeting ripple of unease, but remained utterly silent, his gaze fixed rigidly straight ahead, already mentally withdrawing, emotionally absent, abandoning me once more. Lady Celestia, emboldened by his unwavering silence, her eyes blazing with triumphant, unrestrained fury, raised her hand. Her perfect manicured fingers, adorned with glittering, expensive jewels, arced through the air, aimed directly at my unsuspecting face, ready to deliver the customary, stinging slap, the ultimate public assertion of her absolute dominance and contempt. The world seemed to slow, every agonizing detail stark and vivid, etched into my memory with chilling clarity. The cruel glint of her diamond rings, the malicious, triumphant joy in her eyes, Adrian's rigid, unmoving profile, his chilling, silent complicity, all played out in slow motion. But this time, I was ready. My body, my mind, my spirit, poised and prepared. In a move as fluid as flowing water, as subtle as a whispered breath. I shifted. Not backward, not away from the impending blow, but a precise, almost imperceptible sidestep, a mere fraction of an inch to my left. It was executed with the honed, precise elegance of a dancer, a movement born of muscle memory and desperate, unyielding resolve, a culmination of all my past pain. Lady Celestia's hand, propelled by pure malice and unbridled momentum, continued its predetermined trajectory. It connected not with my cheek, but with the entirely unsuspecting face of Adrian, who had remained frozen, rigid, passively anticipating my inevitable humiliation. The sound was a sharp, resounding crack that echoed through the stunned, suffocating silence of the grand hall, far louder, far more shocking than it had ever been in my past life. A sound that reverberated through the very foundations of their social standing. Adrian's head snapped back violently, his eyes widening in pure, bewildered shock, his hand flying instinctively to his rapidly reddening cheek, his perfect world shattered. Lady Celestia, her hand still stinging from the unexpected impact, stared blankly at her own son, her face a mask of horrified disbelief, her triumph utterly shattered, replaced by utter chaos and public disgrace. Chaos, immediate and deafening, erupted. Gasps, confused whispers. Then a roar of bewildered outrage swept through the stunned crowd. A wave of public condemnation. Adrian's family members surged forward, their faces a mixture of profound shock and genuine concern for their heir. Adrian himself stammered, utterly bewildered, his eyes darting frantically from his furious, disbelieving mother to my perfectly impassive face, completely lost in the maelstrom of his own making. I stood perfectly still, my eyes clear, my posture composed, not a single tear falling from my eyes, radiating an inner calm. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with a fierce, exhilarating sense of profound triumph, a silent celebration of my liberation. The slap had landed, but not on me. And Adrian, the man who had silently watched me endure countless such indignities, now felt the undeniable sting of his own mother's uncontrolled cruelty firsthand, directly, irrevocably, a taste of his own Reborn. Medicine. I looked at Adrian, his stunned, betrayed expression a mirror of his mother's rage, and then directly at Lady Celestia, her face contorted in a grotesque mix of fury and utter disbelief. They were inextricably caught in the intricate web of their own making, ensnared by their own long-standing patterns of abuse and complicity, their carefully constructed world crumbling around them. This was their scene. This was their immediate public consequence. And then, I walked away. I turned on my heel, my steps measured, deliberate, utterly devoid of haste or panic. I didn't run. I didn't look back, not even for a fleeting second, leaving the past firmly behind. I simply walked, slowly, purposefully, through the stunned, murmuring crowd, past the gasping guests, past the horrified faces of Adrian's once powerful family, out of the grand, opulent hall, and straight towards the mansion's vast, ornate entrance. The pervasive silence that had once defined Adrian's chilling complicity was now a potent weapon I wielded with quiet precision. My serene dignity a stark, undeniable contrast to the utter chaos I left swirling in my wake, a testament to my newfound power. I walked away, not merely from the mansion, but from the toxic life I had almost been irrevocably trapped in, walking straight into the vast, open arms of a future I would now meticulously build, entirely on my own terms. The past was irrevocably shattered, and my true life had finally, definitively, begun. The cacophony of stunned silence, swiftly followed by the inevitable explosion of chaotic whispers and exclamations, faded behind me as I stepped out of the grand, oppressive mansion. The cool night air of the city, sharp and crisp, felt like a cleansing balm against the lingering heat of the recent confrontation, washing away the remnants of suffocating pretense and stale perfume. My heart, which had hammered with a frantic, adrenaline-fueled rhythm just moments before, now settled into a calm, steady beat, a quiet, reassuring drumbeat of profound liberation. I felt no fleeting triumph, no lingering malice, only a deep, abiding sense of self-possession, an inner quietude that resonated with absolute, unshakable certainty. The public humiliation I had so agonizingly endured in my past life, the crushing despair born of Adrian's passive complicity, had finally been avenged, not with bitter vengeance, but with quiet, unassailable burrs. Dignity. A peace that began within. I didn't hail a taxi immediately. Instead, I simply walked, breathing deeply of the fresh, invigorating air, letting the profound energy of my decisive action settle deeply within me. The myriad sounds of the city, the distant, comforting hum of traffic, the occasional, fleeting wail of a siren, all felt like a triumphant symphony of newly found freedom, a soundtrack to my new beginning. My discarded past, the fragile, desperate girl who had so pathetically yearned for acceptance, was truly, irrevocably left behind, trapped forever in the chaotic, gilded hall, a relic of a life I no longer claimed. My phone, safely tucked away in my small, elegant clutch, began to vibrate relentlessly, a persistent, demanding buzz against my palm. Adrian, undoubtedly, and perhaps his mother, already in a desperate scramble to initiate damage control, frantically attempting to spin a new narrative, to comprehend the incomprehensible chaos that had just, quote, unfolded before their very eyes. I ignored it completely. That world, those people, held absolutely no power over me anymore. Their strings had been cut. I walked for what felt like an eternity, the grand, imposing mansion slowly receding into the shimmering distance, its glittering lights becoming nothing more than another indistinct part of the city's vast, sprawling tapestry. My mind was remarkably clear, unburdened by the usual anxieties and crushing self-doubt that had plagued me relentlessly in my past life. The future, vast and undefined, stretched before me like a pristine, blank canvas, daunting in its emptiness, yet exhilarating in its boundless potential, a landscape waiting for my design. I finally hailed a taxi, giving my home address with a clear, confident voice, a small act of self-possession. The ride was silent, a much-needed period of quiet, restorative reflection, allowing my thoughts to coalesce. As I stepped out onto my familiar, tree-lined street, my small, unassuming apartment building seemed to radiate a welcoming, comforting warmth. It was humble, utterly unpretentious, but it was irrevocably mine. It represented independence, autonomy, a safe sanctuary untouched by the manipulative currents and corrosive influence of Adrian's toxic world, a true refuge. The very next morning, the city's elite social circles were in an absolute uproar. The engagement party incident, a truly unprecedented scandal of epic proportions, dominated every single gossip column, every social media feed, every hushed conversation. The public narrative was chaotic, a confusing melange of conflicting accounts and wild speculation. Some whispered of a deliberate, malicious slight perpetrated by me, an unruly guest who had somehow engineered the slap, a calculating act of sabotage. Others, those with sharper eyes or a lingering, deep-seated dislike for Lady Celestia's notorious arrogance, hinted darkly at a long-standing family feud, a justified, triumphant act of defiance, a moment of poetic justice. The indelible visual of Lady Celestia slapping her own unsuspecting son, however accidentally, at his own engagement party, was simply too shocking, too perfectly symbolic of their family's deep-seated dysfunction to be ignored or quickly forgotten. It became a legend. My phone, which I had wisely kept on silent, was now a constant, vibrating source of buzzing notifications. Frantic, bewildered calls from my parents. A deluge of bewildered messages from former friends, desperately asking for explanations, offering tentative, uncertain support, unsure how to process the drama. I took a deep, fortifying breath. bracing myself for the inevitable conversations. I called my parents first. My mother's voice was a frantic rush of questions, laced with profound worry and a desperate need for understanding. "Emilia, my darling, what on earth happened? The news. Lady Celestia Adrian, are you truly all right?" I calmly recounted the events of the evening, deliberately stripping my voice of all emotion, focusing solely on the cold, undeniable facts. Lady Celestia's escalating, cutting insults, her raised menacing hand, my instinctive, precise sidestep, and the undeniable, resounding impact on Adrian. I explained my unwavering decision to walk away, my absolute refusal to endure such profound humiliation ever again, my spirit finally refusing to bend. I didn't, of course, mention the fantastical rebirth aspect that remained my most guarded, intimate secret, too unbelievable to articulate, even to them. I simply framed it as a moment of profound, liberating clarity, a sudden, piercing realization of my inherent self-worth, a moment of truth. My parents were stunned into a profound, prolonged silence. My mother, who had tragically witnessed my quiet suffering in my past life, though utterly unaware of its true, horrifying extent, understood the deep, underlying pain that had finally propelled my definitive decision. My father, a man of quiet, unwavering integrity, simply said, his voice thick with emotion, "You did what was right, Emilia. We are incredibly proud of you, our brave daughter." Their unwavering, unconditional support was my true, unshakable foundation, a bedrock in my new life. The days that followed were a whirlwind of relentless media speculation and significant social fallout. Adrian's family, desperate to contain the spiraling scandal and salvage their rapidly crumbling reputation, issued a terse, carefully worded statement canceling the engagement, vaguely citing irreconcilable differences. They made absolutely no mention of the slap, of course, frantically attempting to portray it as a mutual, amicable decision, a quiet parting of ways. But the relentless whispers persisted, fueled by the sheer, undeniable drama of the event, slowly eroding their carefully constructed facade of perfection. Adrian himself remained largely silent, his public appearances strained, his handsome face a mask of profound confusion and deep-seated humiliation, a pale shadow of his former self. Lady Celestia, though undeniably furious and seething with impotent rage, was forced to retreat from public life for a significant period. Her once formidable reputation irrevocably tarnished by her own public outburst and uncontrolled malice, her power diminished. I, however, found myself in an utterly unexpected spotlight. Not as a helpless victim, but as a woman who had dared to defy, who had chosen quiet dignity over prolonged, soul-crushing endurance. My calm, deliberate exit, my unwavering refusal to engage in public recriminations or bitter accusations, only amplified my mystique, casting me in an almost heroic light, a symbol of resilience. The fickle media, initially confused and disoriented, slowly began to portray me as a woman of quiet strength, a powerful symbol of independence and unwavering self-respect. It was a narrative I had inadvertently, yet strategically, cultivated, a new, empowering identity emerging from the ashes of my past, stronger and more authentic than ever. Then, a surprising, welcome message arrived. It was from Julian. "Emilia," the text read, his words a balm to my weary soul, devoid of judgment or expectation. "I witnessed what happened, and I must say I profoundly admire your courage. That cafe invitation still stands whenever you are truly ready. Absolutely no pressure, just quiet, genuine conversation, if you're, quoth, inclined." My heart gave a delicate, helpful flutter. He had witnessed it. He had seen the raw, unvarnished truth beyond the manufactured chaos and public spectacle. And his offer was not one of pity, but of genuine, heartfelt respect, a quiet, inviting hand extended to connect on my terms, with no hidden agendas, no expectations of performance. This was the man who never asked me to beg for love. This, I realized with a swelling sense of hope, was the true beginning of my new, authentic life. I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached my eyes, and with a confident touch, I replied, "I'd like that very much, Julian. Coffee? Tomorrow?" The path to my true future, a future I would choose, had finally, undeniably opened before me, inviting me forward. The Café Julian suggested was a quiet, unassuming place, tucked away on a leafy side street, far from the bustling main avenues where society's gossip truly thrived. Its aroma of freshly brewed coffee and old books was a comforting balm, a stark contrast to the heady scent of lilies and manufactured grandeur that had permeated Adrian's mansion. I arrived early, my nerves a delicate tremor beneath my newfound composure, a faint echo of my past self. This was a different kind of encounter, one without pretense or performance, a space for genuine connection. Julian was already there, seated at a corner table, a half-finished book resting beside his espresso, deeply engrossed. He looked up as I approached, his eyes, the color of warm honey, crinkling at the corners in a genuine, welcoming smile. He radiated a quiet strength, an observant calmness that immediately put me at ease. He didn't rise with forced formality, or offer an elaborate greeting, but simply offered a warm, inviting gesture to the opposite chair, a silent welcome. "Emilia," he greeted, his voice soft, a soothing timbre. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would, given everything. I needed to breathe outside the whirlwind," I confessed, settling into the chair, feeling the tension slowly leave my shoulders. "And your invitation? It was truly welcome, a beacon in the storm." He nodded, his gaze compassionate, understanding, devoid of judgment. "I witnessed what happened at the engagement party. It was quite a display, to say the least." He didn't ask for details, didn't pry for gossip, didn't demand an explanation. His empathy was palpable, conveyed through his attentive silence, his understanding gaze. "It was a long time coming," I admitted, my voice low, a confession to a trusted confidant. "Years of accumulated disrespect. I simply chose not to endure it anymore. My spirit had had enough." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a deep understanding that surprised me, seeing past the surface of the event. "Courage often looks like quiet endurance, until the moment it chooses to roar," he observed, his voice thoughtful, insightful. "You roared, Emilia, in your own powerful way, without uttering a single word." His words resonated deeply within me, striking a chord of profound recognition. He saw not just the public spectacle, but the underlying pain, the inner battle I had fought for so long, the journey of my soul. We spoke for hours about everything and nothing, effortlessly flowing from one topic to another. We discussed books, art, the complexities of human nature, the subtle dynamics of power within society, all with an easy intellectual intimacy. He was an incredibly perceptive listener, his questions insightful, his observations acute, making me feel truly seen and heard. He spoke of his own work, his quiet contributions to nascent tech firms, his passion for innovation that wasn't driven by grandiosity or personal fame, but by genuine curiosity and a desire to build. I found myself opening up to him in a way I hadn't to anyone in years, perhaps ever. I spoke, cautiously at first, then with increasing freedom, about my past struggles, the profound loneliness of trying to fit into a world that didn't truly value me for who I was, only for what I represented. I didn't reveal the rebirth aspect, of course that remained my most guarded, intimate secret, a truth too profound and personal to share. But I spoke of the insidious feeling of constantly being judged, dismissed, and the suffocating pressure of perpetually seeking elusive approval. Julian listened without judgment, his gaze unwavering, his presence a comforting, steady anchor in a sea of past instability. He never asked me to justify myself, never offered empty platitudes or trite advice. He simply understood, offering a quiet, unwavering acceptance. As the afternoon light faded, casting long, golden shadows across the cozy cafe, I realized something profound and transformative. With Julian, I didn't have to perform. I didn't have to prove myself worthy, or capable, or even lovable. I could simply be Emilia, flaws and all, with all my vulnerabilities and complexities, and he saw profound value in that authenticity. This was the kind of genuine connection I had yearned for with every fiber of my being, the love that truly never asked me to beg for affection or validation. Our coffee dates became a regular, cherished occurrence, a sacred ritual that punctuated my increasingly busy schedule. My public reputation, far from being tarnished by the scandal, blossomed in an unexpected, empowering way. My story of quiet defiance, of choosing unwavering self-respect over a prestigious but toxic union, resonated deeply with the public. I received invitations to speak at women's leadership conferences, at forums on emotional intelligence, at universities seeking to foster healthier campus cultures. My voice now sought after. My voice, once silenced by fear and insecurity, now echoed with newfound authority and conviction. Adrian, meanwhile, largely vanished from the social scene, his public profile diminishing. The profound public embarrassment, coupled with the subtle but persistent erosion of his family's influence, due to internal strife and mounting public criticism of their long-standing arrogance, had taken its cause and inexorable toll. Lady Celestia, her once formidable reputation in tatters, largely retreated to their sprawling family estate, her pronouncements now met with polite but firm indifference by former allies who had once flocked to her side. The gilded cage they had so meticulously constructed to trap me in had, in essence, irrevocably trapped them instead, a poetic justice. My relationship with Julian deepened with each passing week, unfolding naturally, organically. He wholeheartedly supported my advocacy work, attending my speeches, quietly offering encouragement from the sidelines, a silent, unwavering pillar of support. He celebrated my every success, comforted me through moments of fatigue or doubt, and consistently reminded me of my inherent worth, my intrinsic value. He saw the quiet strength beneath my composure, the fierce, unyielding spirit that had endured so much, and he loved me for it, completely and unconditionally. His love was gentle, respectful, and profoundly unconditional, a healing balm to my wounded soul. It was a love that healed the deepest wounds of my past, filling the voids left by years of neglect. One tranquil evening, as we strolled through a moonlit park, hand in hand, the silence between us comfortable and profound, Julian paused. He turned to me, his warm, intelligent eyes reflecting the soft glow of the distant city lights, filled with an emotion that made my heart ache in the best possible way. "Emilia," he began, his voice soft, yet imbued with deep sincerity. "I've watched you grow, truly blossom, over these past months. You are, without a doubt, the most courageous, kind, and brilliant woman I have ever known. I never ever want you to beg for love again, because you deserve nothing less than true, unwavering adoration, profound respect, and boundless joy." He gently lifted my hand, his thumb stroking my palm with a tender, reassuring touch. "Emilia, I love you, and I want to build a life with you, a life of absolute honesty, mutual respect, and overflowing, shared joy. Will you do me the honor of being my partner, in every single sense of the word, for I&E? All our days?" My heart swelled with an overwhelming, almost unbearable happiness, tears blurring the soft moonlight, mirroring the stars above. This was it. This was the love I had always deserved, the love I had unknowingly fought for in that past, painful life, a destiny finally fulfilled. "Yes, Julian," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion, barely audible yet resounding with conviction. "1,000 times yes, I love you, more than words can express." His kiss was tender, profound, a silent promise of a future built on genuine connection, not pretense, on shared dreams and mutual respect. It was a kiss that sealed not just a proposal, but a profound shift in destiny, a testament to the undeniable truth that even from the ashes of betrayal and profound pain, a beautiful, authentic love could rise, stronger and more vibrant than anything that came before. The slap that had once broken me had, ironically, led me to a profound rebirth, a clear path to true freedom, and a love that truly, unequivocally, never asked me to beg. My past was a fading shadow, a lesson learned, but my future, with Julian securely by my side, was a radiant, undeniable light, shining brightly.